Welcome to the Occupational Safety Leadership Podcast, episode number 104. In today's episode, we'll talk about tactical versus strategic goals. So, both of them are super important. I know that there are definitely times that I'm so focused on the tactical that I probably have put the strategic on the back burner. But let's just dive right in, talk about a couple of practical examples, and just really how to stay focused on both. So let's sit down and first off, we'll just kind of break down the different goals there. So they're both really important, of course, um, but like all things, they're going to differ in their scope, focus, and time frame. So tactical, we kind of think about like what do we got to do, like pretty darn like maybe not right now, but in the next day, next week, next couple weeks. Strategic, what do we need to do on an annual basis? So let's continue to break down these goals. And we'll talk about tactical first. Short term, very specific in nature, you know, and they address the immediate concerns and hazards that you find in the workplace. Then time frame, of course, is really kind of set for um, maybe not like right now today, but next couple weeks or month or so, I'll have this thing done. Maybe it's on a quarterly basis then. And when we kind of think about a couple examples, things like implementing new safety procedures, conducting a regular safety inspection, providing targeted training for the specific hazards out there. Certainly don't want to wait a whole year and say, well, we assessed it and then we kind of figured we would just add it to our everyday training. So something that really has to be done now. And if you discover that you are not in compliance with regulations out there, or if something has changed on the federal or state level, and sometimes by compliance with regulations, we can also kind of lump in the corporate stuff too. Um, it's not uncommon for a corporation to say, we've decided that we're going to go do the following, and maybe they haven't got complete buy-in from all the field people. So sometimes we have to sit down and talk about, so what do we got to change like literally right now? Let's switch gears a little bit here and talk about strategic. So these are much more broader and long-term perspective then. And he's kind of talk about the overarching safety objectives, continuous improvement. When we think about culture, when we think about those kinds of things that we're trying to implement in a company, the organization. And so these have a much longer time period then, sometimes spanning years. And when we sit down and think about this, it could be, let's just throw out a hypothetical. You're brand new. You then come onto the site as a brand new safety professional in a company. Well, there's probably something already there. So you want to look at what's there, and then you want to look at what you're going to improve and change. And it might be something that you're just having trouble um, sitting down and saying, all right, so I'm going to now establish a comprehensive management program. I like to go the route of the formal um, type there, like programs like ISO 45001, the OSHA VPP, all that stuff. But sometimes you just have to kind of get something up and get it running, and that can literally take a time, 2 or 3 years too. Um, Part of it, of course, is when you want to sit down and think about a strategic goal, establishing a safety culture. So that's something that's really hard to establish, and it's really easy to lose at the same time too. So when people bring ideas and examples and things right over to you, they need to see where it's going to be acted upon. And if it's not acted upon, you go back, you close the loop, and you say exactly why it wasn't acted upon then. So establishing a safety culture, people really need to see that it's going to happen, their concerns are being addressed, and then it kind of success builds on success. Investing in ongoing training and education. So it might be that you're just trying to take care of, at first, using your tactical goals, all right, I kind of got the big things down, I'm good, but how do I really sit down and educate the workforce and really say, so how do we handle these hazards? And not just that, but how do I empower you to make the change, not just give it on a piece of paper to me to go ahead and change, because I do think that most people know exactly what they have to do to make something work, to have a change, to have a safer workplace. They have a hard time really having that confidence. Sometimes they believe because they don't have the title, or they don't have the money, or they don't have whatever it is, but really getting the people involved as opposed to almost like a top down where you will dictate. So a strategic goal takes time for that to take root, takes time for people to know that you're also serious about it. Because quite possibly they've heard this quite a few times over the years and they just haven't seen it yet then. So that's pretty much it. When we kind of sit down and think about both the tactical and the strategic goals, now both of them are really important. Uh, but I know at times that sometimes it's hard to think about a goal that's out there when you're focused on, all right, I got to put a HAZCOM program in place. I got to now focus on lockout tagout. I got to focus on this, to sit down and say things like, I'm at the point where I can now start to educate more of the workforce, empower more of the people, empower more of the supervisors, because literally as one person, you can't do it all. So they know the hazards. They know how to fix it too at the same time then. So I think both are super critical, um, but it's a balancing act. So I'm never going to sit here and tell you that one is better than the other. I don't know what issues that you have over at your workplace, and that's why this is more of just a very high level. Let's just sit down and kind of talk about the different goals. So that is it for episode number 104, where we talked about tactical versus the strategic safety goals. I think both are super important, um, and vice versa. I know that many times we think that we're going to get lost in the tactical goals and not focus on the strategic. I have seen in very rare cases where people were so focused on the strategic goals that they didn't even have things like lockout, tagout, and HAZCOM in place, but they were more focused on, how do I get certified and how do I do this? And I got to make sure that all this is done in 1 year. It's great to have a schedule, but you still got to put those building blocks in place. So that is it for today's episode, number 104. I want to thank you for joining me today. My name is Dr. David Ayers. Thank you and have a safe day.